Whoa! Wow, we are here once again on a Wednesday. No, wow, I'm playing myself as usual. That's actually good though, because at least I know that things are working. I've learnt that recently as well. Anyway, I am joined today by Annie. Yay!
Hi, everyone.
Wow, yes. I will ask you to introduce yourself a little bit in a minute, Annie. But firstly, a massive thank you for coming along. Great to have you here.
I'm very excited to be here, and everyone who's here, big hello from Toronto.
Yay, woo. And hello from me in Wales. Yeah, let us know where you're tuning on in from in the chat. And Path is here, and he has preempted me here with a little tradition we have, which is, if you're new here, please put a bunny rabbit in the chat. And if you've been before, hit me with that tiger. We don't do anything with this information. It's just for fun. And welcome, everyone joining us from around the world today. If you have any questions for Annie, let us know. But firstly, Annie, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you do and your background?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Annie, and I'm originally from Australia. I am a bootcamp graduate. I graduated from a coding bootcamp in summer of 2019. I'm currently in my second job. I am the front-end engineering lead at a startup in Toronto. And it's been a very, very winding journey to get here. But that's basically what I do right now.
Yeah, sounds awesome. Tell us a bit about that journey. What did it look like?
Yeah, so it's super long linear. I started as a designer. I have a degree in multimedia design from Australia. And after working in design for a couple of years in Australia and in London, UK, I decided to be an English teacher.
Yeah.
So like one of the things that I love doing, I'm sure a lot of people would love it too, is going traveling. So when I was traveling and working in Canada and the UK and stuff, I was doing a lot of really random jobs. But my main work at the time was working as a designer. And when I moved to Japan afterwards, I became an English instructor for a school there. After that, I came to Canada, decided, I'm going to go back into design. But after 6 years in Japan, it was really hard to get back into design. So I kind of was doing like a bunch of like random jobs, like 3 jobs actually, trying to, make ends meet and everything. And then I decided, okay, this isn't working. This is really tough. And I looked into boot camps, like that kind of came onto the radar. And actually with my background, I was thinking maybe I'll do a UX boot camp, but I found a coding boot camp that just had a really, really good community. And I was like, I really wanted to, be a part of that community. So that was a really big impetus to join that coding boot camp. And as a multimedia designer, I did actually code a little bit, like super, super basic HTML, CSS, and I really didn't like it. Like, yeah, I know a lot of people love coding, but I was not one of them. I was like doing everything I could to get away from coding. So it's pretty interesting that I'm here now and I actually love coding. So
yeah, definitely. So tell us a bit about how did you kind of change that feeling of not liking coding and turn it into something you now enjoy?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like when I started to get into it, it was something that I was curious about. I had a conversation with somebody once and about this. It's like suddenly I liked coding it before I didn't. And it was probably because when I was studying multimedia design at school, it was one of my courses. So I had to do, I didn't really have a choice. I wasn't that interested in it, but I had to do it for my grades. And the second time around when I was looking into it, it was kind of my choice to look into and decide what I wanted to do. And so I just started getting very curious about it and approached it in a way that it wasn't like I'm going to be a web developer. I was just doing, what is this about? And the landscape had changed a lot. I'm a big believer in the fact that community and your surroundings has a really big impact on you. And my very first, at the bootcamp, I did a part-time course first. And my instructor was a Shopify developer and she was a female and she loved her job. So that inclusive environment and her enthusiasm for it really, really made made me love it and think, oh, maybe I can do this. And as I got deeper and deeper into it, it was so different from the HTML and CSS I knew in the past, where it was like, you know, putting everything in like tables for layouts and everything.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So,
what
exactly. And then I was learning about Flexbox and like all these different things that it was just so different. So I started getting more curious about it. And as I got deeper into it, I started falling in love with it more and more. So I feel like you don't have to start off with a passion for it, but as you get better at something, the passion and the love for it comes as part of getting better at your craft.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, what was it about this particular community that attracted you to this bootcamp, and how did it help you to learn to code?
Yeah. So the bootcamp I went to was called, initially when I joined it, it was called Hacker U, and it's now called Juno College. And one thing that was like very different for me was when I was, you know, growing up a lot, and I went to a few different boot camps in Toronto just to check them out. And a lot of them were mostly male. It was, one of them was like in the basement, and there was just a lot of, you know, men like coding and stuff. So I didn't really feel like, can I be here? Can I see myself here? But the bootcamp that I eventually joined, Juno College, had a lot of women. It had a lot of women. It was extremely inclusive. I reached out to a number of alumni, and they all, you know, got back to me, and they were happy to talk about their experiences. And they said, this is one of the best decisions that I've ever made. No regrets. So it was definitely a combination of the community, like the very, very strong community, and the fact that it felt so inclusive, and I could actually see myself there as a woman. So that was two big things.
Yeah, makes a huge difference. Yeah, wonderful. Link Strifer says, Annie rocks.
Thanks, Link.
Completely agree. Perfect. Yeah, well, that's a bit of background into your journey into code. So you mentioned you had a few jobs before coming to code. Here they are in a tweet. Server, cashier. Let's go through them, and I'll tell you which ones I've also done. I've also done cashier and English teacher, not designer, volunteer coordinator. I have coordinated some things, or tried to. Graphic designer, 3D special effects artist, not those. Signal theft investigator. What is that?
Okay, that has to be the most interesting job that I've had. And this was I never made any money from it. It was literally a bounty hunter job in Vancouver when I was there. And what that involved was, so, you know, when sport events happen and there's like pay TV where you have to pay for, the establishment has to pay for a license to stream the sports.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. But some places steal the signals. So I literally had to go to, you know, pubs mostly pubs and bars to like check whether the sport game was playing, like write down how many people were there. And if I caught a pirate, which was a establishment that was illegally streaming the game, then I would get some money, a bounty. But I never caught anyone, so I was not very good at that job.
Everyone's behaving, yes. And then we have some more design jobs. Private tutor, I've done. Cleaner, only for myself, sadly. If I could be paid to be my own cleaner, that would be good. And butler. So all of these are a nice wide range of jobs. How did you present these jobs and the skills that you need to do them on your CV in order to get yourself into tech? Because that's a question we get quite a lot from people in Scrimba who want to change career. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the first thing to think about is to view your past experiences as a net positive, and that they actually help you stand out from the crowd. I don't, you know, like put down the list, like the total list of everything that I've done, because not all of it is relevant, but there's a lot of transferable skills from one industry to another, as I'm sure a lot of people have mentioned. So in your CV, like if I'm thinking about, like, one of the things that I do write down is, because I was an English teacher or tutor for so long, those kind of skills of communication and mentoring people really translates to a code job, because in many ways, when you're writing code, that is communicating with your team, and with the code that you write is a way to communicate with other developers as well as, the computer and stuff. So there is a lot of crossover. And specifically, like on your CV, I didn't have any real like big development experience, but I had a lot of design experience. So a lot of that was transferable. And on my CV, what I did was I highlighted the main project, like a cornerstone project, if you can say so, that you're most proud of. And I highlighted that as one of, like, not really an experience, but as a way to showcase this is the kind of thing that I can do as a developer in the future. So that's that I have.
Yeah, I can totally see from being like a private tutor or an English teacher, how that would be really useful in a coding job. And also if you get to mentor juniors when you progress a bit in your career, that would definitely help.
Yeah.
Perfect. Question from Eileen, which we kind of touched on here, but how important were soft skills in the tech field? So would you say that it was mainly soft skills that helped you out from your previous jobs, or were there technical things that you took over as well, or maybe both?
That's a great question, Eileen. I think for me personally, a lot of the skills that got me the job in the first place was the design skills that I built like throughout my years in design, but also because I got I mentored a fair bit, and that kind of showed that I was involved in the community. When you're doing an interview, I think your soft skills are extremely important. At the end of the day, the way I think about it is that when a company hires you, they're not hiring you so much for, the fact that you can write a function or, the difference between like DOM and the virtual DOM. They're hiring you because as the person that they want to work with, and for all of those extra soft skills that you bring to the table, they want to see that you're able to communicate well. They want to see that they talk about culture fit or cultural add, right? At the end of the day, people hire people that they like, that they want to work with, that they can, learn from or teach. You can teach a lot of technical skills, but soft skills and things like being proactive and ready to learn and willing to learn are not really things that you can teach someone. So I would say soft skills are very important.
Yeah, perfect. Owlcat has a similar background to yours in that they've tried a couple of different careers before. How did you convince employers that you are now committed to being a dev? That's a good question, Owlcat.
It's a very good question. I built a lot of projects. I think one of the ways that to kind of demonstrate that you're committed is literally to show that you are willing to learn and building projects. When I was doing my bootcamp, it was a 9-week bootcamp, and we had to download a plugin for VS Code called Whacker Time. So we were able to track the amount of time that we spent in VS Code. And I actually logged the second highest number of hours during the 9 weeks that I was there. And that's not to say that, it's not something that I shared with people when, when they're asking me like, how many hours do you code a week? So no. But I think the fact that I put in so many hours showed in the work that I was doing. And when I was talking about it, it was very clear that I wanted to learn more. I wanted to grow my skills as a developer. So even though I have tried different careers in my life, as you said, coding felt different to me. It felt like all the different, things that I've done in the past kind of came together. Like this has felt like the first real job that I've had in a long time, if that makes sense. So yeah, it feels different.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's a great idea. Really building up those projects to show how serious you are about it. So I hope that helps.
Ask questions too. It kind of shows that you're interested in the companies as well and employers.
Oh, yeah, great idea. Saeed would like to know, how was your experience learning JavaScript?
I have a great, Leanne, if you wouldn't mind just going onto my profile in Twitter, I actually drew a picture about my experience learning JavaScript.
That's fine. Yeah.
It's my pin post, so you can blow that up, blow that up a little bit. This is how I feel about learning JavaScript.
Yes, that's very relatable for me too.
JavaScript definitely doesn't come naturally to me. There's a lot of repetition that I needed to do, and it was quite confusing. I think I'm very right brain leaning, so having like all this like really logical loops and functions and stuff was very different. But I also know that even though things are hard at the beginning, if you just keep doing it and keep going at it, you can't put that amount of time and effort into something and not get better at it eventually. So that's the way I kind of think about it. And if I look back on where I started and where I am now and the things I've learned, I can kind of like, not systematically, but I can reflect and know that I actually have improved my JavaScript skills. I understand more. And that's been really satisfying, honestly. Like being able to learn something very difficult that you didn't know before is just the best feeling. It's amazing.
Yeah, perfect. And what I like most about this is all the thought bubbles are saying, huh, what? I don't understand, OMG, oh, my brain hurts. But then here in the bottom right, it says, but I'm doing it anyway. So that's
exactly. And I want to say that JavaScript has made me cry before, like literally made me cry before. That's not understatement.
Yeah, and we can also see along the side in the comments lots of people who are pretty well known in the tech Twitter space relating to this image very much. So I think this is I would say universal feeling. If it's not with JavaScript, it's with CSS or something else. Yeah, we all feel like this at some point. So do not be disheartened if you feel.
Don't give up.
Absolutely, yes.
Part of the process.
Yeah, totally. And who was it? I was speaking to someone recently and they said, if you're not struggling to understand, are you really learning anything? Because if you always understood everything, then well, you're just staying the same all the time. So
exactly.
A good thing.
I don't know if like anyone else experiences this, but when I was learning JavaScript, like my brain literally hurt. You know? And I don't know if anyone else has that, like in the comments, but I think it's because I'm doing something so different from what I've done in the past that my brain has to make all these, new synapses and connections. And I think the physical act of like making all those like new synaptic connections was what was making my brain hurt.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This here is a totally normal feeling. Do not worry. A few questions coming into the chat about your portfolio. So let's have a chat about that. So Pratik would like to know how your portfolio helped you in your career. And Martin would like to know what kind of projects you built to put in your portfolio, essentially. So yeah, would you like to tell us a bit about that?
So, okay, presenting jobs and skills. The first question. Sorry, if you could go back to that first question again. It was okay. I'll talk about my portfolio. There's in my opinion, there's three things that you'd 100% definitely need in a simple portfolio when you're looking for a job. That is your about, projects, and a way for employees to contact you. The reason you need an about, and this is very underrated, is that, as I said previously, people and companies and employers hire other people. They don't hire a robot or a monkey that codes. So they want to know who you are, what you're about, what are the things that you care for, and what makes you a good fit for their team. So the about is actually pretty important. It gives the first impression of what employers think of you.
Yeah. Here's Annie's about here. Just to have a little look at this. What kind of things would you recommend putting in there? I can see you've got a bit about your education and a bit about what you do. So it's not too much of a life history, I would say, but a nice overview.
Yes. So keep it a bit short and sweet. Definitely talk a little bit about your background. And, so in my background, I said I'm from Australia. I studied design. I graduated from the web development immersive. And then something casual and fun, like I have my scuba diving license, and I didn't make this one super casual, but there are things that I actually do care about, and that is stuff like sweating the details. I really care about UX and UI and like writing good code and writing accessible good code as well, and bringing all that together. So write something about your background, like how you came into tech, and write something about what you do in your free time is a very simple way to write about that and what, drives you outside of coding.
Yeah, that's really nice, especially something like your scuba diving license. It is unrelated to your job, but it also shows some level of willingness to learn and commitment and so on. So if you got something like that, then yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then as for the kind of projects so I can only speak from the aspect of a front-end designer. Front-end developer, because I didn't do full stack or back-end. But the kind of 3 projects that I do recommend is, first of all, have a project where you take a existing design and translate that into code. So in this case, you're showing responsiveness, you want your code to be accessible, you're showing an understanding of the box model and how the site breaks down. You can look into Sass, which is widely used in the industry as a way to write CSS a lot easier. You can look into, as you're coding, you can learn how to use Amit, which is really great, and a way to write HTML a lot quicker. So you're breaking down a design into a page or a couple of pages in code is one really good project. Another project is to do a game, and so if you scroll down a little bit, I think there's a game over there. WordWiz is a game that I built with another developer, and that's calling an API. So you can this is I think this is a dictionary API. So as you go on, you have to beat the wizard, just make it fun.
Oh wow, fun.
Yeah. And definitely have something with an API or a couple of things with an API. You can do a game. CRUD is a really good one as well. CRUD stands for create, read, update, and destroy, and that demonstrates that you know how to work with a database. I'm not sure if I actually showed anything here. That's another game. And this last one over here is you can click on this one if you like, and that's from a flat design into into an actual website. And I put a lot of effort into this. I made transitions and animations. One of the very first times that I did it. So I learned a lot in this project.
Yeah, that's lovely. Beautiful.
Yeah. So just try to show a variety of skills that you would use in the job that employees would potentially want, which is writing good code, good semantic HTML, good reusable CSS, learning how to work with an API and databases.
Perfect answer. Yeah. What did you do in terms of contact? I see you've got your contact section here and a form, and then social media links for people to check out. Very nice indeed. I also noticed this toolbox. I think it's very effective because you've got all the symbols and it's right there at the top. So yeah.
Yes, that's definitely something you can add. And that's a plus. And then another plus if you have any testimonials from people who can kind of vouch for who you are or the things that you have done, that's another one. I have to say, this site, I made this as the final project for bootcamp. So it's a little bit old, and everything here is, from my design work that I did. So all these people are people that I've worked with in design, but I think they still reflect the kind of care for the craft that I have. And yeah, I kind of want to update my portfolio, but I haven't had time. So yeah.
Well, it looks fantastic. Very nice, beautiful portfolio. So I hope that has shed a bit of light about how you can make a fantastic portfolio. Angel says, Whacker Time is a great VS Code extension. Helps me stay accountable by setting weekly or daily goals. That's a good idea.
That's amazing. Yeah. I'm curious to know, what's your weekly and daily goals? Do you have one for how much time you want to work in VS Code?
Yeah.
Angel question for you.
Brilliant. Interesting question from Sagzo. In order to become a good developer, should one just focus on a specific part or technology of a big project, or try to learn all the technologies required to build a fully working project? Interesting.
This is a great question because I kind of experienced this when I first started working at my first job and my second job as well, and being thrown into such a big code base, which when you're learning in a bootcamp, you don't have access to large production level code bases. So that is all new. And I know, especially for my second job, I tried to learn everything, But to be honest, you're not able to learn everything that you need for the entirety of your job.
Yeah.
So what I've learned since, and a lot of people I've spoken to have said the same thing, is that learn the skills and the technology that you need to finish a particular feature or ticket or task, and learn what you need in order to finish that. And over time, as you're learning all those little bits and pieces, they will all compound, and slowly you just get more and more, information. So you're not trying to learn the entirety of the code base at once, because it's very hard to do that. And when you're not actually using those sections of the code base or those particular technologies, it's not relevant to the task that you're doing. So you're not going to really remember it. And I know this because I have a lot of pairing sessions with my CTO, and sometimes he'll go through the back end and like mention all this stuff. And I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking, that makes sense. But then when I try to explain it myself, it doesn't quite, like, I'm not able to really articulate it properly until I actually go in and work with it myself.
Yeah.
So focus on a very specific part that you need to complete the work that you do. And over time, those things that you need to learn will get bigger and bigger, and just kind of take it one step at a time.
Yeah.
And just break it down.
Yeah, that totally ties in with what we believe at Scrimba, really, because our whole kind of approach is to learn by doing. And I completely agree that I find it very difficult, if not impossible, to understand anything in a kind of abstract way. I have to basically do it, as you say. So
yes,
I think
if I like think about, I have to do this, it seems so big and monumentous that I'm just like, I don't know how to start, and it's very overwhelming. So I probably won't be a developer if I knew I had to be working on some of these huge features that I have been, and I wasn't able to break them down, because it's very intimidating.
Yeah, definitely. So excellent tip there. Just learn what you need. Dax is wondering, did you at some point have to work on learning data structures and algorithms in JS as well?
This is such a controversial topic, I think, especially in the JavaScript community. And I'm going to say at bootcamp, we did not learn data structures and algorithms. However, I have in my own free time started to learn them. I once spoke to a developer from an agency. This is very early on, before I even in my first job. And he mentioned that he had also started learning it in order to progress further up in his career and like learn and take on a bit more of the back end responsibilities. I think data structures and algorithms is definitely something a lot more back-end developers need to know for, database and like learning how to structure database and data and everything. As a front-end developer, it really depends, because front-end is so wide and encompasses so many areas. You can be really front of the front end when you're just focusing on UI and UX. And my first job was like that. It was basically HTML, CSS. I absolutely did not need any algorithms and everything. And now that I work in React, in Next.js to be precise, because I'm working with a lot more logic and writing functions and thinking about those kind of things, learning those data structures and algorithms have definitely been a bit more important. I don't think as a front-end developer, though, you need to feel like you must know it. I've done very well for myself for the last 2.5 years without really specifically needing to know data structures and algorithms, but it is very useful, I would say. And at the end of the day, it's like a new thing, and it's fun to learn new things. So it will definitely help you if you want to learn that.
Yeah,
if you want to progress in your career.
Sounds like basically what you said. You don't need it, but if you do learn it, it will probably help. Perfect.
Did you learn it too, Leanne?
I have not. No, I have. I've written an article for a course we have on Scrimba about algorithms, but that's as close as I've come to them so far. Who knows? Maybe 2022 will be my algorithm year.
Yay!
Damaris is following Annie, and how she's learning JavaScript is amazing.
Thank you.
I enjoy her tips, quizzes, and recently how she's made a PR. Excellent job.
Yeah, open source.
Brilliant.
So it's never too late to, contribute to open source, by the way. Like, it
Yeah.
took me a long time, and hey, I did it.
Yeah, me too. I only got involved this, the Hacktoberfest just gone. And
Oh, wow.
well, I was actually kind of, we have a page where we show off our weekly Web Dev Challenge submissions, and I was monitoring it. I don't know what you call it. Yeah. Other
Yep.
people were making pull requests to me. Haha. The power. So yeah, that was nice. Good. Dax says, learn what you need to complete the task at hand should be a t-shirt for sale on
Oh,
Figma
thanks,
merch store.
Dax.
It's a great idea. Yeah.
I'll take 50% actually of that.
Carla's wondering, is it better to be a jack of all trades or a master of one? So specifically talking about languages or frameworks.
I love this question. And the reason I love it is because a lot of people don't actually know the full phrase. So the full phrase of jack of all trades, master of none, is oftentimes better than a master of one.
Yeah, that is very true.
And I remember going back before the pandemic, I went to a talk and it had a lot of senior developers and people who were giving tips and advice on, your first tech job. And something that somebody said to me always stood out. And he said, the people who get paid the most in tech are not the people who know the most deeply about something. It's the people who have a breadth of knowledge about something, and then they're able to jump in and basically, anywhere. I do think having a wide knowledge is very important because then you are able to see where all the different parts of a project or technologies fit into the wider picture. There's something called a T-shaped person. I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's the idea that you have a breadth of knowledge and then you get deep into one thing.
Yeah.
So when I think of myself as a T-shaped person, I want to learn about like the front end, the back end, and DevOps, and have a wider knowledge of all the technologies involved in creating the web and the internet. But I specialize in the front end. Front end is a lot more difficult than people think. There's a lot of accessibility, there's performance, there's user experience and UI. And if I try to do everything, I don't think I will be great. However, I do want to have all those knowledge so that I have enough knowledge to be dangerous, basically.
Yeah.
That's how I think about it. So for me, with my life and all the random things I've done, I'm definitely a jack of all trades. And there is definitely something to be said for being a master of one.
Perfect. Yeah. One question that comes up periodically on Twitter, one of those roundabout debates, is should designers also be developers? Now, as you've been on both sides, I feel like you're perfectly positioned to answer this. So what's your take on this?
It depends on the type of designer you are. Something that you learn in tech is that all these questions, often the answer would be, it depends. But I feel like as a graphic designer, if you're just working in print, you don't necessarily need to be a developer because you are not working with responsiveness or the screen or colors that way. But if you are designing for the web, I think that it's important to have a fundamental knowledge of things like the box model, the way things break down, basic CSS and stuff like that. And the reason I say that is because I've worked with designers who come from print and they try to translate their designs from print designs directly to the layout and screen, and it's almost impossible when they design a mobile version versus a desktop version. They don't break down correctly, and some of the designs are impossible to do, like physically impossible to do in code without lots of like display none and everything. So having that knowledge to know how content and content on the DOM breaks down from the desktop to mobile is extremely relevant and important to a job as a designer. They don't need to know like everything, but it makes the whole process from design to development so much easier if there is a common ground between the designer and the developer.
Yeah, totally. So would you say that having been a designer was helpful in your developer career in that way then? Or did it kind of create some problems as well?
That's actually such a good question, because I was going to say yes, it definitely helped me, because 100% it helped me because I was designing the web pages that I now build. But also, as a designer, it also means I spend so much time like deciding colors and fonts.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but I kind of like, because I'm also focused on the visual side of the web page or of a design, I spend probably more time than necessary or that I need, maybe, like thinking about those things. But on a whole, has definitely been very helpful. And there's a lot of articles and maybe like tutorials out there that help give developers a basic understanding of design concepts that are very useful to helping them in their development career.
Yeah, that's interesting actually, because quite often we get the question of how do you improve your design skills if you're not from a design background. So you're saying, take a look at articles,
Yes.
maybe courses, or basically there's material out there that can help you.
I have a great article as well. I'll try to repost it again after this talk that I found, and it's a guide to design for non-designers. It's very succinct, it's very well written, very basic, but it will give a lot of direction for people who don't actually don't know where to start, and that's a great way to do it.
Perfect. I've Googled it, but I'm only coming up with a book.
I will find it. It's on Medium. It's an article on Medium, so I will find it.
Is it this one?
No, it's not. There's so many articles. I'm sure this is great as well.
Keep an eye on Annie's Twitter.
I will do it after this.
Share it a little bit later. But yeah, design for non-designers sounds very helpful.
And I'd just like to go back to something that that has been very useful as a designer, as a skill, I guess, is that when I was in design school, one of the things that we often had to get was constructive feedback from people, from our peers and from our teachers. And so over time, because your work was just constantly getting, like broken down and like getting all this feedback, it kind of helped me to disassociate who I am from the work that I do. And that is a really, really good way to improve, because the only way to improve is to get feedback from other people. But if you get feedback and you feel very personally tied to that feedback, it's a lot harder for you to improve, because you get very what's the word? I forgot the word, but
hurt, basically.
Basically. Yeah. But if you've gone through the process of always getting feedback, which you did as a designer, you're able to kind of just take that feedback as it is and then just improve based on that feedback. So that was a really good skill I cultivated, I guess, during design school.
So was it just the fact that you'd done this so often that you kind of became almost desensitized to it that allowed you to do that? Or was there some other way that you, I guess, changed your mindset on that?
I think it's being mindful that when your client gives you feedback or other people give you feedback, they're not directly attacking you. They're just kind of talking about the work that you've done for them or about the job that you did. And it's kind of knowing that that is not about you. And then B, the second part is literally just it has happened again and again and again. And I will say at the beginning, it was hard to get, some of the feedback, because yes, it feels almost personal, but you can work with like really great people, and they also have, especially with clients, because I was a freelance designer as well, I kind of know that they want the best for their brand or their design. So they're not attacking me. They just kind of want the best for their brand and giving you the feedback. And so that's something that I keep at the back of my mind as well. And over time, if I feel hurt, like I'm able to just kind of draw from that and realize that. So the more you do something, the more comfortable it becomes. And that's a part of it.
Yeah, totally. I think it can be quite scary. Well, in any skill really, but sharing your code at first when you're fairly new, or if you've just never showed anyone your code before. But as you say, the more you do it, the easier it gets. So
yes,
get out there. We
Yes.
have a Discord server. If Michael's still there, hopefully he'll drop a link in the chat. Share your code and get some feedback.
I've learned a lot from instructors giving me feedback on my code about learning about reusable CSS and all these different things. It's been one of the biggest sources of improvement for me.
Absolutely. The Link Strifer wants to know, what do you regret not starting to learn sooner? Yeah.
That's a good question. Not starting to learn sooner. It's difficult to say, because in many ways I feel that everyone's journey is unique, and had I start learning something sooner, maybe I wouldn't be in the position that I am in now, because everything's so intertwined and interlinked.
Yeah.
But I would say right now, maybe TypeScript. I kind of I'm in the process of transitioning our code base at work from normal JavaScript into TypeScript. And man, like TypeScript just yells at you all the time.
Yeah.
And, so I regret maybe not learning TypeScript a little bit earlier. But like I said, I do think that you kind of only have so much space in your brain, and you kind of have to learn what you need to learn at the time to get the task that you need done.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't want to regret, my journey and stuff like that. So I don't really think about so much my regrets, but more like, what do I need to learn now for the future to improve and get better?
Yeah. That's a really good way of looking at it, actually. And maybe you could look at, not you, but people could look at not learning to code earlier in the same way.
True.
Like what we were talking about earlier with the skills that you got from your previous careers, if you'd gone straight into code, then you maybe wouldn't have them. So
it's so unique.
Yeah, it's the things you pick up along the way.
Yeah.
Play Store asks, could I become a designer with knowing Figma instead of tools like Photoshop and Illustrator?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think if you want to know, like, Photoshop is really good for photo manipulation. So if you're creating graphics, and again, it depends on the type of work that you want to do. If you're creating graphics, if you're manipulating, pictures and stuff like that, you probably need Photoshop, because Figma is largely for vectors, and Adobe is still the industry standard for like more traditional work. And I use I use for motion graphics. Okay, I have forgotten temporarily. Anyway, like I use the Adobe suite a lot for the stuff that I'm not able to do in Figma. But if you're building UI and web pages, Figma is perfect. And there's such a big community around Figma that I would highly recommend, that I would say, yes, you can be a designer just knowing Figma. But if you want to get deeper, you'll probably need to eventually know the Adobe suite to do more specialized things. And a lot of industry still uses them. I
think this is going back again to learn as you need type of approach. So yeah, sounds like you can get started with Figma, but 100%. You might need some more things later down the line. Oscar is a recruiter who wants to turn developer. So that is interesting, because I think recruiters could have a lot of skills that they could carry over to the tech industry, for sure. I mean, if you're a tech recruiter, then you already know what you need to know, which is helpful.
That's a superpower.
If not, I can totally see that you have a lot of soft skills that will help you. So good luck along the way there.
Good luck, Oscar.
Yeah. Cypher is asking an interesting question. Must you be a smart person to learn software development?
No,
I like this question. What do you think, Annie?
I don't think so. I think more than like being smart or intelligence, you need persistence and a desire to actually learn and do the job that you need to do. I don't think intelligence or being smart plays as strong as a role as just like being super stubborn and just, like fighting with JavaScript every day to learn the things that you need to learn. So no, I don't think so. That would be my answer, short answer.
Yeah, I think it's about resilience persistence. And people always say you have to be really motivated, but actually you just need to be determined. This is a tip I picked up from Kadesha, who came on to the live stream a few weeks ago. You don't have to necessarily be raring to go, like, oh, I'm so excited to do this today, but you just have to do it.
You just have to start.
Just go and do it. Yes.
Yes. And over time, the things that are difficult, like I said, like I'm not smart at JavaScript. Like honestly, I'm really not. But it's just doing it again and again, and eventually things will sink.
Repetition. Yeah. Exactly. Let's talk a bit about your current job, Annie. You are at Pastel here, which is a startup. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about life at a startup. What that's like.
Okay, so I love working at Pastel. I was the first hire. We are a team of only 5 people. And I am basically 50% of our engineering department. So yeah, I handle the entire front end. Our app, I guess, is broken in 2 parts. What you're seeing now is the marketing pages, and that's done in Webflow. And then the actual application, once you sign in, is made in Next.js. So I work on the app. I don't really touch the marketing pages. And maybe I can just talk about what is Pastel. But Pastel is basically a tool that you use to reduce, to get approval and feedback on websites and other creative work. You know, you can just leave, you can leave like a post-it note, and people can have threads. You can tag other people and have comments and stuff. And it just helps a lot of companies to do this process easier. Like, you know, have you ever built a website and you ask someone for feedback and they're like, oh, this thing is broken over here. And you said, where? It's not broken. And they're like, oh, it's over there. And then you don't know, like, it's only broken on mobile, maybe. And it's just so many information's missing. So Pastel just kind of gets all the metadata and all the information. You just put a pin right there. This is where it's broken, or this needs to change. And it just makes that process so much faster. But yeah, as the front end, as a person responsible for the front end, I can definitely say that it's, you know, you hear a lot of things about startup life being very busy, and it definitely is very busy. I have a very high level of responsibility and autonomy in my work. So I'm able to execute a lot of the decisions that I make, because our product guy isn't able to completely go through all the edge cases as I'm building a feature, say. So I make a lot of decisions as I'm building, and I'm able to do that without needing to go back to someone and get approval and everything, which is quite different from my job at the agency, my first job, where every single thing I needed to change, I needed to get approval, and it was like a long process. So I would say that one of the hardest things about working at a startup is being able to prioritize, because I'm working on features, but there's things that I want to do to improve our front-end code base, like refactor things, make it better, improve the developer experience. There's bugs I need to fix. And it's always a constant prioritization between like tech debt, bugs, and feature building. So knowing what is important to the company that helps the company move on, and is something that I think about like very constantly. If I'm working on a feature, I'm working on a feature, but there's bugs that come in. Maybe this bug is a priority, maybe that one is not. And I've really came to understand why sometimes you submit a bug request and it doesn't get worked on for like a long time. And that's literally because there is like the developer or the team is working on higher priority things, because that's how it has been for me. I have so much things on my plate that I can't do everything. Like, for example, in the next year, a lot of things that I want to do with the code base, I mentioned transitioning to TypeScript. Another one is we use Redux in our code base, but it's like old school Redux with a lot of boilerplate. I'm planning to transition this to React Toolkit, because that will help make it a lot easier to use in the future. I'm implementing testing at the moment. And before anyone says, you know, you can't like, you know, put everything out there without testing, my CTO built the entire app by himself. And when you're working in such a lean environment, you kind of have to prioritize getting your work out there and reiterating on it. And then as things come up, then just pushing it. So testing does take a long time, and we're at a point now that I really feel testing is very important. But that is the reason why our code base currently doesn't have testing, but I will add that. And yeah, lots of focus on feature and integrations and plugins and stuff. So yeah, prioritization is pretty big.
That's interesting. Yeah. You mentioned when we were emailing that you would like to talk a bit about how important it is to write good code,
Oh, yes.
even under time pressure. And that definitely sounds like something you come across quite regularly. Yeah. What would you like to tell us about that?
So in my first year of code, I was speaking to a developer, and I was asking him for tips on best practices and stuff. And he said one of the things that you should learn very, very early on not to do is to write hustle code. And hustle code is the type of code you write just to get it done and push it out. And there's not a high regard for the clarity of your code or what it says. And, it creates more and more tech debt. Now, tech debt is fine in like small amounts. Sometimes you just need to get it done. But I will say if you pick up and practice bad habits early on, it's much harder down the track to unlearn them and break them. And if you practice good habits initially, then you have a lot more momentum to continue to build them. And I can give a very specific example in my first job. So I was about 5 weeks into my first role as a developer, and I was the only front-end person working on creating this huge American e-commerce site. And I had to basically architect and build it from scratch. But I actually took my time to think about a lot of the things like how am I structuring my files? What am I using to title my CSS classes and all these different things. And it did take a little bit longer at the beginning, but later on, this project that I worked on had almost zero front end bugs with CSS, and you know how annoying CSS bugs are.
Yeah,
so annoying to find.
Yeah,
and I'm so proud of that because
totally, it should be. It's all about doing the groundwork for things to be easier later on. And I understand why people don't necessarily want to, because it's kind of stressful when you're doing this groundwork because it like nothing visible is coming out necessarily. And you're like, but it's definitely worth it later on. And then, as you say, it really shows in the work. So
definitely. And also, I think if you're working on a task or a ticket or something, try to factor some time to think about what you're doing before you actually, as Danny Thompson says, like let your hand flies on the keyboard. Specific phrase. Before you touch that, like think about how you want to structure things and what makes sense to you. Because the cost of bad code compounded over time becomes bigger and bigger. And it's more expensive as well because like later on when there's bugs, they need like more developers to fix the bugs, and it just gets bigger and bigger and compound.
Totally. My mom likes to say there's no such thing as a shortcut.
It's true. Yeah.
Perfect. Ooh, Mike from HTML All the Things is here. That's cool.
Oh, hi, Mike. Mike is great. He does a really great podcast. So anyone is listening, like check out his podcast.
Get on in there and check it out. Aileen says, seeing you being excited about your job and talk about what you're doing is so inspiring as a new developer.
Oh, thank you, Aileen. I really, really love my job. It's one of the best things that going to bootcamp and deciding to take the plunge into becoming a developer is literally one of the best decisions that I've made for me as a person. So yeah, I'm excited. I hope that, you're going to go far with your career as well.
Yes, best of luck to you, Aileen. I would like to know, is there anything you would change about your journey into tech and the route you took? I liked your approach earlier that you tend to not have regrets, but is there anything you think, could have done that differently?
I guess the only thing that I can really think of is maybe it would have been great to have started doing, getting involved in the community earlier. I didn't know about like the tech community when I first started. I didn't know I literally didn't know anyone because but But with my bootcamp, they made us get a Twitter account to improve our, like it's one of the things that they did to improve our personal branding. But I just didn't know anyone. And it was only after I started doing 100 Days of Code that I realized that this whole big world of developers and really friendly, helpful people appeared to me. And I would say that if I was doing it again, I would probably get involved and reached out to communities a little bit earlier.
That is a nice little prelude, I guess, to me sharing the link to Scarimba's Discord server. Yeah. Head on over there. We're a very friendly bunch. We have code, coding help channels. We have pet picture channels. We've got it all. Yeah. So get on in there. Do you have any tips for making connections in the tech industry on that topic? I know that we met, I'm not sure it was the first time we met actually, but we'd spoken at least before in a Twitter space. Any other ways you've gotten to know people?
Yeah, so definitely the first one was just get involved in community and, look when you're kind of like making connections, like keep it authentic and keep it real. Like don't, like I used to get a lot of just hellos and then I feel bad about not responding. So it'll be hello, how are you? And eventually it will be like, can I have some money or can I have some laptop? And that's not a really good way to, get connections. So I would not recommend that. But I don't know if anyone else gets that. But when you ask questions to people, like people are very willing to help, but they're more willing to help if they've seen that you've actually done your homework before and that you've demonstrated that you've tried. It's the same with coding. If you ask for coding help and you're saying, why doesn't this help? Why doesn't this work? I can't do it. If you say, why doesn't this work? I've tried A, B, and C, then it helps them and it helps you as well, because you've demonstrated that you've tried X, Y, Z, and you've been like very proactive in trying to solve this particular problem. And they know that you've done it, and that it makes it a lot easier for them to know what you've tried and how they can help you. So yeah, build connections, like be authentic, comment like on Twitter specifically, like comment on people's work and like share what you like about it, and just be authentic when you're interested in people. I think that really comes through for building connections. Be friendly. People are people at the end of the day, and we all kind of want the same thing. I think, and that's to be like have good careers and be happy and that kind of stuff. So even the most famous people on Twitter, I'm sure they get a lot of comments, so they might not be able to respond. So have some understanding, compassion about that. But in general, like, don't feel afraid of reaching out to people. I respond, like when people in Slack or write to me and stuff, or email, I respond to my messages as much as I can.
Yeah.
So never
be afraid to say hello. Just drop on in.
Exactly.
A very nice question from Carla here. I'm doing a boot camp right now. Woo. I'm graduating in 2 months. What would be your advice for me? Thank you.
So I'm kind of wondering about this question, if it's advice for getting work or maybe general advice in general, but I'll throw a few things out there. It's like one or the other. Focus on building your projects, 100%. Make sure that you have a portfolio at the end of your bootcamp where you can really demonstrate and show people. Danny Thompson has a really amazing series of ways of optimizing your LinkedIn profile. Take a look at that, because that would be very useful for people to find you, and for recruiters specifically. So very much focus on getting good at your projects and learning the skills that you have. Like, you have a very good opportunity right now to just like really dive deep into web development and learning all the things that you learn to do. Once you start work, it becomes almost a little bit harder to find the time, because you have other priorities such as building features and getting your job done. So like, do your best and just focus on the work at hand. And then afterwards, when you're getting work, like it might be difficult to get work, but one of the things that you can do is tell everyone that you're looking for work. A lot of the work that I got as a designer was through contacts and connections. So the more you tell people you're looking for someone, people like, working with people that other people have recommended or they know. So the more people who know that you're looking for work, and the more people even if it's not like totally, like deep or anything, the more that you'll be topical on their mind when they know someone who needs a website done or needs some other work done.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And speaking of Danny Thompson, he's also been on this live stream.
Oh, has he?
He has.
Oh,
yeah.
That's funny.
Talking about exactly that, optimizing your LinkedIn. So go and check that out. Lots of good tips. I learned loads from him. So there's the link in the chat. Well, I can't believe we have already reached the top of our hour, Annie. That has been a wonderful chat.
That went fast.
You have shared so much brilliant information, and we have a new person at Scrumba now who is basically repurposing the content from the live streams and retweets it, which is really cool. I really like it.
Oh,
so
nice.
I am sure that he will find some amazing tidbits to share on our Twitter. So keep an eye on Scrumba's Twitter and keep an eye on Annie's Twitter as well. Yes, brilliant. Thank you so much for coming, Annie. I must let you go now. I want to respect your time. I've already stolen a minute and a half too many. Apologies for that. But yeah, it was fantastic to meet you. And thanks for all the wonderful information.
No, thank you so much for having me. And good luck to everybody. Thank you all for coming. Good luck with your journeys. And yeah, feel free to reach out anytime. I know my DMs are not open on Twitter because I do get a lot of people, asking for laptops and stuff. But yeah, if you respond to any comments on any of my posts, I will often reply. So yeah, Thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate it.
Jamara says, we love you, Annie. And on that note, see you later.
Okay,
bye.